Hello, everyone. Welcome in. As you can see, I'm playing solo today. I am Justin Frye at JFriedP. You can find me on X. You can hit me up on Discord. As always, join in, send us questions as we go along. I'm happy to answer them as we run through the show today. Fortunately, Joe's traveling, so he will not be with us. He's stuck with me. Um, yeah. So another day where mostly just going to be running through free agency. It's been a busy week, but before we get to that, I just want to highlight you guys should all consider joining IDP Plus. The rookie mag just dropped the last couple days, so get in, get that. I think it's right around $10 for it. You become a member. You can get access to our Discord, all of our rankings, full-time access to our writers on Discord. A lot of great content coming out. Some of it you need access to as well. We've been running through all these different our IDP Plus tools. Randy wrote a great article on that, as well as different scoring settings. He recently wrote an article on talking about the value of a rookie draft pick. This coming week, we've had a couple articles drop on some teams that nailed their free agency, let's see, how to transition your league to an IDP, and when you should take your first player in an IDP draft. The rest of the week, as well as next week, we're going to be hopping into some winners and losers, starting tomorrow with linebackers, with the first article, and running through defense, and then switching back to offense, and then we're full-time into rookie drafts. Seeing no questions, we will dive right in to round 2 of free agency. In case you missed it, we hit on a bunch of players last week. Everyone who had signed before or during the show, we did not discuss, or we did discuss last week, so we won't bring them up this week. This week, we'll go defense again, starting with edge. The couple big names that have signed in the last week. Danielle Hunter had not yet agreed to terms with the Texans. That is going to be a formidable defense with Danielle Hunter opposite Will Anderson. They've got, Aziz Al-Shair on the second level. I forget. They signed a cornerback as well to play opposite their young guy. Sorry, I'm terrible with names. But that defense is going to be a lot of fun. Someone I'm probably looking to target if their cost isn't too ridiculous as just like a DST. I like the DJ Wanham signing in Carolina. They also signed, Caleb on Chasen. Couple former highly drafted players that did not do as much as some people might have hoped on their rookie deals, but especially the Wanham deal after trading away Brian Burns, he's going to have a really good opportunity there and is someone to target later on in drafts, or as like a throw-in piece right now in a dynasty trade. He really could break out as the probable top pass rusher in Carolina. I do think they'll add someone in the draft. They have a couple picks at the top of the second round now with that Burns trade that it wouldn't shock me if they added someone. So something to watch out for, but I do think Wanham will be one of the starters regardless. Josh Sweat, was extended by the Philadelphia Eagles. So that one's interesting from a couple pieces. Obviously, he's going to play quite a bit. Nolan Smith, I do think at some point they're going to increase his playing time. And I think the news broke yesterday or today that the Eagles pushed back a roster bonus on Hassan Reddick from mid-March now-ish to the beginning of April. And why that matters is most likely that leans towards they are looking to trade Reddick. Where is he going to land? I don't know. There's still a bunch of teams with some cap space. I would say the Commanders make the most sense, but why would the Eagles trade him to the Commanders? The Patriots might have made some sense, but they brought both Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings back on relatively cheap deals, especially Uche, who signed like a $3 million 1 year contract for some reason. Hometown discount there. But Reddick's going to be an interesting name to see who goes out and gets this guy. I could see the Cardinals and his old coach, Jonathan Gannon, out there trading for him if the price isn't wild. But anyone who trades for him is then going to have to extend him and hand him a pretty sizable deal. So I do think that hampers how much they will get back for him. The last real big edge player, Chase Young, agreed to a fully guaranteed $13 million contract for 1 year with the Saints. Very interesting to put him across from Cam Jordan. The big takeaway for me, besides Young, who runs a little hot and cold, and he's worth a flyer, I guess, but not someone I'm super interested in. What does it mean really for their 2021 first round pick, Peyton Turner, and their 2023 second round pick, Isaiah Foskey? The Saints are just struggling to develop pass rushers. So something like this makes some sense. Maybe Turner kicks inside or something, but I do think it's a good move for Young to get there. I'm still kind of keeping the light on for Foskey. He was never an uber athlete, but he's still at least someone that's interesting. I did like the tape when I watched him last year, and he was obviously very productive at Notre Dame. So with that, we'll move on to defensive tackle that saw some movement there as well. The big news the past week was Aaron Donald retiring, which is a little surprising because all reports were that the Rams knew about it in advance and decided to spend money elsewhere. We'll hit on some of the spots, but it'll be interesting to see how all these young guys can play without the double team magnet that is Aaron Donald in the middle. I probably will not be going after Kobe Turner myself. A lot of people, even people on our site, might disagree with me, but I do believe that he benefited a ton from playing next to Aaron Donald. I think all of them did, and it'll be really interesting to see in just their second year if these guys can keep it up. That being said, I mean, he's not an obvious must sell. I do think there's upside. I do think there's a shot that maybe he can keep it up, but he's not going to face all single teams going forward. And that does change some stuff with how he should be ranked, in my opinion. The other big move was Eric Armstead getting cut by the 49ers. That was being reported. He had not signed. He has since joined the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trent Baalke, his old general manager who drafted him, is now on the Jaguars, or is now working for the Jaguars, and signed him. It's a pretty interesting deal there. It's good for him. Reports are he was playing hurt most of last year. So if he had a little bit of a down year, I would point more towards that. I do think it really helps Josh Allen because to be able to have Armstead and Allen next to each other and then Trayvon Walker on the other side, it's going to be a really, really good pass rush I would expect in Jacksonville this year. So I'm excited to see where that goes, what that means for them. Let's see. Who else signed? We've got the Cincinnati Bengals bringing Sheldon Rankins in from the Texans. I do like that, but I would have rather they kept their own guy as DJ Reader left to join the Lions, which that one I absolutely love. And it's going to be so interesting. The Lions have made a whole bunch of really smart moves, in my opinion, this offseason. And Reader's just one of them. So I do think they really don't have any needs at this point, the Lions. They signed a cornerback, they signed a receiver, they signed O-line. Like, they've got some pieces there, and I'm excited to see what the Lions can do going forward because I do think they are going to be a really tough out for anyone in the NFC going forward. Ashawn Robinson to the Panthers is kind of interesting. I was a little surprised they threw some money there, but I mean, you got a couple space eaters in the middle now with a couple young pass rushers on the outside. So it's interesting. We'll see how they build up that defense, but they're definitely allocating a lot of resources to fixing the trenches, and that's never a bad way to build up a roster. The other interesting one, I kind of like Neville Gallimore coming out. It's been a little bit. I think he was at Oklahoma, but he signed with the Dolphins for fairly cheap after they lost Christian Wilkins. So he's a deeper name that I'm monitoring. I don't know. His old D-line coach is now in Miami with him. So I'm kind of curious to see if maybe he actually gets a little more opportunity than he got in Dallas. But got to see it before much actionable content to take there. Let's see. Linebacker continues to just fly off the board. I'm not sure who's even left at this point, but we'll highlight some more additions. The biggest names, Levante David returned to the Bucks. Huge for them since after that was reported shortly, Devin White went to the Eagles. Spoiler alert for my article that's coming tomorrow on linebacker winners and losers. I am not a fan of White to Philly. White has never been good against the run. He's been one of the bottom 4 or 5 linebackers, I think, all 4 years in the league so far. I am skeptical that he keeps up a full-time role, to be honest. I do think it's good for Nakobe Dean. I don't know. I expect the Eagles will draft someone. We'll see what the draft capital they wind up having is, especially if they trade Hassan Reddick. But Devin White to Philly does not scare me off of Nakobe Dean. Let's see, where else? Bobby Wagner decided to follow his old coach, Dan Quinn, to DC. This one was interesting too. So Wagner signed a 1-year deal. They signed Luvu to a 3-year deal we talked about last week. So those two, and you prioritize linebacker like that, they're both starting for you. Most defenses, Quinn's included, don't play 3 linebackers all that much. So the big takeaway here, Wagner, Luvu, both going to be great options. I think Quinn's defense in Seattle, he's had his linebackers combined to post like 350 tackles in a year before. So I have no concerns on Wagner as long as he doesn't lose a step. Possible he's getting a little up there, but he's one, at least for redraft purposes, I'm willing to take a shot on, regardless of his age. However, the big stuck down to me is Jamin Davis. We talked about him a few weeks ago. There's a report out there that Quinn wants to use him as a pass rusher more, and this all but confirms that he is moving to the edge. And unfortunately, I just don't know. It's going to be kind of like Zaven Collins for the Cardinals last year when they moved him to edge. I'm willing to just move on and cut him potentially in a dynasty league if I need the roster spot. So he was never great in coverage. He might play some limited snaps as their third linebacker, but yeah, you can go look at what Zaven Collins did last year for Arizona. I'm not super into guys making that kind of position change for IDP at least. Josie Jewell signed with the Panthers. That one's a pretty interesting one to me. The Panthers, I believe, are returning Shaq Thompson, but they lost Luvu, obviously, to the Commanders we were just talking about. And Jewell played with, oh goodness, I'm going to butcher his name. Avero was his defensive coordinator and I believe head coach for a little bit in Denver and is now the defensive coordinator in Carolina. So he is a good option there and someone I would expect to see a little bit of a bump, I think, in playing time because he was only playing around 70% of snaps Singleton had taken over that job fully. We'll hit on his replacement, Cody Barton, who signed in Denver. I'm not super excited for that one either. Like I just said, Jules only playing 70% of snaps, and he knew the system a little better. So it wouldn't shock me if Barton is right around that 70% mark. And unfortunately, that is not going to give you enough value week in and week out to make him any more than probably a linebacker for your team. So unless you're in a really deep league, he's probably just the bench piece where maybe if something happens to Singleton, you start him. Who else do we need to talk about? Seattle went out and made 2 additions, Jerome Baker and Terrell Dodson. This is interesting with Mike McDonald out there now. Obviously, Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith did wonderful things under McDonald in Baltimore for IDP. But I still worry. They've got to draft someone. So Dodson's on a 1-year deal. Baker, I think, is on a 1-year deal. I would be shocked if there's not a rookie in there to develop. And that rookie is probably, at best, a 3rd-round pick. So it's going to be a shot you can take in the middle rounds of rookie drafts. But to me, that's what I'm targeting more in Dynasty. I do like Dodson. I do like Baker, and they're probably fine stopgaps for Seattle this year. But we could have a situation similar to Baltimore this year where Queen leaves and Trenton Simpson takes over going forward. Last show, I believe we talked about Eric Kendricks going to San Francisco. Well, he changed his mind, and now he's going to Dallas, and he's going to be the starting linebacker for Mike Zimmer, who he played for when he was in Minnesota. Great deal for Kendricks, great choice. I mean, I'm sure he didn't make any friends in San Francisco doing that, but it's a much better opportunity for Kendricks to be playing out there than it was with him hoping Dre Greenlaw doesn't recover fully enough to start the year, which wouldn't shock me with an Achilles injury in the Super Bowl. I would expect him to start on the PUP list. If he doesn't, I mean, either way, he's going to be an avoid for me in redraft and someone I'm looking to trade away in Dynasty leagues because, I mean, Achilles, I don't think he's going to be what you want in year 1 back from that, whether he starts the year on the PUP list or not. Let's see. Who else do we need to hit on? Devondre Campbell, the former Packer, decided he would take the job that Kendricks didn't want in San Francisco. I expect him to have a decent role to start the year. He should be their second linebacker, and he's a great insurance plan for Greenlaw and for Warner out there because their backup linebacker in the Super Bowl was not it, and they needed to improve that spot. So that was a great move, and I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to draft somebody either. The last one is Denzel Perryman, speaking of drafting linebackers, to the Chargers. So 1-year deal. He should be the starting middle linebacker. I know a lot of people are excited about Diane Henley from last year, and I do think he will get an opportunity, but he's a little smaller than Perryman, and I expect Perryman to be the starter in the middle. It wouldn't shock me if Henley's on the weak side to start the year. And I do think that you could see similar to what happened in Houston this year, where Perriman loses his job partway through the year. Because it would be an upset to me if the Chargers don't prioritize taking a linebacker on day 2 of the draft. They have other needs, yes, but Perriman and Henley, I would be adding to that room if I were them. And I would expect it to probably be Junior Colson if he's there, since Harbaugh coached him up in Michigan. And so did the defensive coordinator, whose name is escaping me at the moment. But if Colson's there, I would expect him to be probably an early 3rd-round pick for the Chargers. So, and someone I would absolutely be interested in dynasty drafts if that's his landing spot. Let's see. Let's move down to safety. I haven't seen any questions come in, but feel free to shoot them over if you've got any. happy to answer any questions you guys might have. Let's see. Safety. We've seen some movement. There wasn't much before, but CJ Gardner Johnson to me is one of the bigger names going back to the Eagles. This one makes me a little sad as a Sidney Brown guy. I tore his ACL at the end of the year. I was hoping he might get a shot. I'm just not sure now. With Gardner Johnson back there, he's going to be their box guy, and Blankenship's probably the free safety to start the year. So unfortunate, but hopefully he gets a shot in year 3, or maybe when he comes back, maybe he can take Blankenship's role. Jordan Poyer to the Dolphins. That one is a great move by Miami after the Bills had to let him go. So he's someone, should be a pretty good, maybe a safety 2, safety 3 type for a roster on IDP, in IDP scoring. Another big one, so didn't re-sign. I think he restructured, though. Harrison Smith is back with the Vikings, which for Harrison Smith managers, great. You've got at least one more year of him. I thought he was going to hang it up this offseason, to be honest. And as a result, I was a little worried about what Josh Metellus' stock would be. But Harrison Smith coming back is great news there, because you're bringing back all of Bynum, Smith, and Metellus, which means Metellus is locked in to his big nickel role in that defense where he was blitzing and kind of playing a hybrid linebacker role. So he's someone, if his draft stock doesn't stay around where he finished last year, which in most scoring settings was a top 10 defensive back, I'm really interested. Cameron Curl agreed to a deal with the Rams, which is a great signing by them to replace Jordan. I'm excited to see Curl in that fuller role up in the line of scrimmage. He can play all over, but I really hope the Rams use him in the box like he was being used in Washington, because that's where he's at his best for IDP. Speaking of Jordan Fuller, he decided to join the Panthers on a relatively cheap deal. Kind of an interesting signing. He should be the starting strong safety there, I would think, and he might be fairly cheap because he's kind of been up and down, but someone I'm willing to take a shot on later if I need a safety. The last name I really want to hit on is Von Bell. Not for Von Bell's sake, but there's been some discourse on what the safety position looks like for Cincinnati. And I think my normal co-host, Joe Harlow, kind of commented on a tweet about it where he and I are kind of in sync on this one. For me, Von Bell signed a 1-year minimum salary deal because he had fully guaranteed money still in Carolina. So to me, it's a smart move by the Bengals to bring him in to be their third safety. Now, they also signed Geno Stone, which we talked about last show, and he's at his best deep as a free safety. Jordan Battle's at his best near the line of scrimmage. And Dax Hill struggled at both of those roles, but was great out of the slot. So the alignment I would expect to see is Dax Hill at cornerback going forward, which makes him a sell for me. If he can play full-time in the slot, that's a pretty good role, and he won't kill you if you want to keep him. But I do think it's definitely stock down to him. Anyone who managed him at the end of last year knows he was kind of being phased out a little bit and not as great for your IDP as rosters as he was to start the year when Jordan Battle took over that role. And Battle was great. So I expect him to be the safety that you really want in Cincinnati. Let's see. We got a question from Christopher Jacobs. In regards to safety, how do you feel about Xavier McKinney? So I really like McKinney. My concern with McKinney is he's yet at his best as the deep safety. And I don't believe Green Bay signed anyone else significant. So my question is who they're going to pair him with. I would like McKinney to be a box guy I typically play in more tackle-heavy leagues versus, like, a big play league where you're looking for interceptions. So I prefer my safeties to be a little more consistent and just racking up tackles playing in the box. But if he's playing deep in like a big play league, I could see taking a shot on him there. I really like the move for Green Bay, but again, I just don't know without knowing who they're planning to start next to him. He's one where I'm probably selling him just on the big contract he got, knowing that someone might overpay and pay a premier cost for him while I can re-roll at safety again. And I mean, guys crop up every year at safety that you aren't expecting. I take Josh Metellus last year, so I'm probably more on the sell side with McKinney, but I do like him a lot. So sorry if I'm hedging a little bit. Cornerback. Not a ton of news here. Kenny Moore back in Indy is great news for Kenny Moore and the Colts. We'll see if there's been all sorts of fun reports on they are or they aren't in on L'Jarius Sneed until they trade for him. I assume they're not getting him. Dane Jackson to the Panthers. I like the deal, especially when you take it looking at a trade they made, which we'll get to when we get down to the player they acquired in that deal at wide receiver, and Tavierre Thomas to the Bucks. I thought he was a really good slot cornerback, and I'm really excited to see him in Tampa. Hopefully he can carve out that slot role there, and he will be viable for me in any cornerback needy starter cornerback type leagues. So something like the IDP Invitational, he's one that I don't like to burn much draft capital there. It's usually round 29, round 30. And it's only start one cornerback. And I'll find a slot corner I like and just take him at the end of the draft. Any other IDP questions? All right. With that, we'll hop on over to the offensive side of the ball and dive into quarterback. And quarterbacks saw a whole bunch of movement on reserve quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph in Tennessee, Flacco to Indy, which is, it's a good ad for them, but he's a little different from most teams that try to prioritize players that are similar to their starter, so they don't have to change the scheme. Flacco and Anthony Richardson are about as opposite as you can get on an athleticism or from an athleticism standpoint. So it's interesting to see him choose to go to Indy. Desmond Ridder was traded from Atlanta to Arizona for Rondale Moore straight up, which was interesting. I don't think Rondale Moore is going to do all that much in Atlanta, but it's a good ad for them for depth slot. Maybe he'll get more of a shot there. Who knows? Ridder is a solid backup for Kyler. Those two do play similarly. And I do think Ridder is going to be a solid NFL backup. The Seahawks gave up quite a bit to get Sam Howell to be the backup to Geno Smith. At least that's the way it's being reported, is the backup. And I do think that absolutely is how it will play out if there's any kind of competition at all. So, unfortunately, for anyone who had Howell, not the landing spot you really wanted. We'll see. Maybe he impresses Seahawks brass enough. I think Geno's only there for one more or for this year, and then he'll be a free agent. So maybe he gets a shot to start again next year. Kenny Pickett got dealt across Pennsylvania to Philadelphia because he didn't like the Russell Wilson deal, to which the Steelers decided to go cheaply buy Justin Fields, which unfortunately for Fields and Fields managers just kind of stinks. It was a 6th round pick that they gave up to get him. It becomes a 4th if he plays more snaps than Russell Wilson, basically. Yeah. If that's all teams value Fields as, he's pretty clearly a backup. For perspective, I'm a Pats fan. We got a 6th-round pick from the Jaguars for Mac Jones. So it's interesting that the NFL is telling us Mac Jones and Justin Fields are valued similarly in their eyes, because that is not the way that you would see it in a dynasty trade just before this news. However, if you play in like a super flex league, if you can get him off of his manager, they're willing to get out from Fields. I'm willing to at least inquire. They do think at some point he will get another shot. Typically, first round picks get multiple opportunities to start. So he's one that I'm very interested in, at least in a super flex league, or less so in a one quarterback league. He probably belongs on waivers unless your leagues are super deep. But I did find that at least interesting. Jimmy Garoppolo signed with the Rams. Good backup for Stafford there. Good in that type of McVay, Shanahan system. So I like that one quite a bit. He's going to be suspended the first couple of games. But if Stafford were to wear down over the course of the year, Garoppolo's a really good backup option for them to have. And the last really big piece of news at quarterback, I put it here. There is no quarterback involved in the deal. It is solely draft capital, where the Vikings acquired a second first-rounder, pick 23, from the Texans in exchange for the Vikings second-round picks this year and next year. I believe there's like a 5-6 swap in there as well. But for all intents and purposes, it's a first this year for a 2 this year and a 2 next year for the Texans. Smart move for Houston. Honestly, it's a smart move for both. The Vikings now have 2 first-rounders this year plus their first-rounder next year to offer a team at 3 or 4. And for Vikings fans who are saying, well, 11 and 23 is roughly equal to 3 on trade value charts. Why would I give up a whole nother first? Well, that's the price you're paying to move up for a quarterback. Like, that's just the way it is. You can go back to San Francisco trading up from 12 to 3 for Lance or 11 to 3 for Lance. That's just the price. Like, it's been set. It's not changing. So, for Pats fans, you're not getting Jefferson off the Vikings. So, I'm, as a Pats fan, tired of seeing Pats fans say that. And I hope we trade back at this point, but we'll see. Hopefully the Vikings can acquire Drake May, because he would be a lot of fun in that offense. And like I said, for Houston, most teams don't have more than about 16 to 18 players that they put first-round grades on. So from their perspective, in my mind, they probably said, we're not getting one of our first-rounders here at 23. We're getting the same tier of player at, I think it's 41 that they acquired, something like that. Why would we not just take an extra 2 essentially for free? So that's why I think it's a good move for Houston. Let's see. Running back. A.J. Dillon decided to return to Green Bay. I don't know how to feel about this. He's never been all that great for the Packers. But you would like to see Josh Jacobs have a bigger role than what they've given Aaron Jones historically. Jones has always done well with it because he's been highly efficient. Josh Jacobs was not highly efficient last year. I just hesitate a little bit on Jacobs. I never expected him to get the full workload, but the fact that they're willing to bring back a running back they already had scares me a little more than bringing in someone new. Speaking of someone new, the other big running back news was Madison to the Las Vegas Raiders, which some people said that's bad news for Zamir White. He's been super inefficient everywhere, every year with the Vikings. He's had some good games, but they're purely volume-based. It'll be interesting to see if White can be efficient, because his big games were also volume-based. So it could just be 2 inefficient running backs there. They also had a lot of positive game scripts in the few games where he had an opportunity to play. So I'd be curious what playing from behind with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell kind of looks like. He, Zamir White never really showed much pass catching in college. Granted, he had some good pass catchers on the team with him, but still, you would like to see the full 3-down role for him. Overall, it doesn't really affect my view of Zamir White. He's still a fine RB2, and Madison, in my mind at least, is basically just a handcuff, but not someone I'm super interested in. Ooh, so that's it for running backs. I'll skip over wide receiver real quick. Not much news at tight end. Hayden Hurst went to the Chargers. Hopefully his concussion issues are behind him. And Austin Hooper signed with the Patriots. Decent depth signing to build up their tight end room to play behind Hunter Henry. Should be a good compliment there, those two together. O-line, stock up for Breece Hall, stock up for Aaron Rodgers, stock up for Garrett Wilson, Morgan Moses, and Tyron Smith as bookends for a year for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets is great news. It also opens up the possibility that the Jets at 10 will take a weapon of some sort. They've got some receivers coming through. I believe Mike Williams is visiting yesterday. So it was early this week. He was planned to be in the Jets facility. I think that's a pretty good fit with Wilson being the deep guy to Wilson's underneath, running all sorts of different routes while having Williams kind of take the top off and be a deep threat, similar to an MVS with Devontae Adams for the Jets. Mike Williams being there would hurt if they drafted a tight end like Brock Bowers at 10, though. I do still think the Jets, both, like I said, both those tackles are on one-year deals. If I'm them, and I know Aaron Rodgers is playing for multiple years, then I am probably prioritizing tackle over tight end at 10, but we'll see what the Jets decide to do. The other big one that I want to highlight, Jonah Williams signed with the Cardinals, and right before that, DJ Humphries got cut. So great move for the Cardinals to have Williams with Paris Johnson there as their bookends for Kyler. We need to get him some weapons, but Kyler is going to be a fantastic option for managers this year. We'll see if he's still at a discount because people are worried about what he looked like off a torn ACL last year. Personally, I'm optimistic. I'm buying Kyler in Dynasty. I'm excited to see what this offense looks like, even if they don't have Marvin Harrison and they do trade back with a team like the Vikings. We'll hop back up to wide receiver now. So I talked about Mike Williams a little bit. He was cut from the Chargers as they worked to get cap compliant. Makes a lot of sense. Coupled with the fact that the Chargers then traded Keenan Allen, though, I'm more than a little worried about Justin Herbert. Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, and Hayden Hurst as your top pass catching options with Gus Edwards out of the backfield. I'm not sure how many teams have worse weapons around a quarterback at this point. And I'm pretty sure they're I would be surprised if they took a wide receiver at 5. Honestly, I do think there's a chance with Marvin Harrison Jr. if he were there, but I could also see them prioritizing a tackle opposite Rashawn Slater to keep Herbert upright and help their run game, and just run the ball down everyone's throat the whole year while Herbert does play actions occasionally. Similar to what J.J. McCarthy kind of did at Michigan, and people are scared of how little volume he had. So I've seen some discourse on 101 versus Justin Herbert in Superflex, And with what the Bears have done, and Harbaugh's history of winning in a dynasty league, I could very easily see trading Justin Herbert straight up for Caleb Williams. And it scares me that that's a thought. But yeah, I'm kind of out on Justin Herbert this year. He's not someone I'm interested in, unfortunately. Apologies, my Google Doc just reloaded. The big wide receiver news broke after last week. Calvin Ridley to the Titans. As a Pats fan, this hurt, and then I saw the contract, and I was like, okay, yeah, I wouldn't have paid him that either. So Calvin Ridley got the second most guaranteed money at receiver all time, I believe, in $50 million to go probably play second fiddle to DeAndre Hopkins with Will Levis. Almost locks them into taking Joe Alt, assuming he's there at 7 for the Titans. I like what they're doing. It'll be interesting to see if Levis can take any kind of a step forward because he was not great as a rookie. Obviously, they're putting pieces in place around him with the running game and wide receivers to try to make him successful. But I am treating Ridley as a hopeful wide receiver 3 at this point. I'm probably more on the side of trading him away based on this news. I think DeAndre Hopkins is a better player, unfortunately. So I'm just kind of out on Calvin Ridley. Titans also brought back Nick Westbrook-Akine, who I guess might be their slot guy. I'm not sure how they're gonna do their alignments, but I'm hoping Burks gets a shot in the slot, and he should be better there, which honestly just hurts everyone again a little more. But I'm not saying I'm fully out on the Titans offense because you could say people were out on the Texans offense this past year, and that kind of bit everyone in the butt. So I do think there's a point where they become worth it, but Ridley should be cheaper to me this year than he was last year, maybe like around 6 or around 7 type pick. I haven't seen where he's dropped to in best ball. The other big receiver news, Hollywood Brown joined the Chiefs. For anyone who plays Dynasty, in my mind, this is a great opportunity to sell Hollywood Brown. Yes, it's the Chiefs. Yes, it's Patrick Mahomes. It's a 1-year deal. And when the Chiefs draft a receiver, maybe round 2, everyone's going to say, well, Hollywood's only there for a year, and he's going to leave and try to get a bag somewhere. And I believe I saw a stat where I don't think he's put up more than 1,000 yards, but maybe once in his career. So I'm willing to let someone else take that shot on chasing that upside with Mahomes. Because I think Rashee Rice is the receiver you want there. I think Travis Kelce's still their top option and opens up that whole offense. And really, what does that leave Hollywood Brown? Hopefully he can be a little more efficient than MVS, but I feel like that's a lot of what they're going to use him on. Talked a little bit before about the Panthers signing a cornerback, and that's because they traded away one of their cornerbacks and brought in Deontay Johnson, who is absolutely a perfect fit for Bryce Young and what he needs. He should be a better version of Adam Thielen for them. And I do think Deontay is probably going to be someone I'm rostering a lot, hopefully in PPR type leagues, at least redraft. Dynasty, I just am not sure he's ever going to be valued in a similar way to some of the young guys that are going to enter the league this year. So unless you're a win now team, he's not someone I'm super interested in going and getting right now either. But he is a fantastic option if you are trying to win this year, because he's probably one of the safest bets to hit, 100 catches, 150 targets, something like that. I think both of those. He should probably be. I think I saw someone post this on X. Basically, if you can find a betting thing with a line on him to lead the league in receptions, one, or yards, probably not, but at least receptions, I would think he probably won't be near the top of the list. But I do think there's an outside shot that he and Bryce Young are really good together. Devo. Curtis Samuel signed with the Bills. Interesting deal there. 3 years, I think, and $24 million. I'm a little surprised that they paid that much money to a guy who. How much does he really differ from a Khalil Shakir? Um, I would have thought they would go for a different profile of receiver, but their OC, Brady, worked with Samuel, I believe, when they were in Carolina. So I don't think it's nothing that they decided to bring in Samuel. I don't think it's good for Khalil Shakir. I'm excited to see how the Bills decide to use Curtis Samuel. Hopefully they use him a little more. But at the end of the day, I do think the Bills are still going to draft someone because Josh Allen needs someone to replace Gabe Davis. And the last one I want to touch on real quick is KJ Osborne, signed with the Patriots. Nothing too exciting here, but at the very least, he's a solid depth piece who might be able to carve out a decent role with a rookie, especially with it being a rookie and a new team. He fits the system that Alex Van Pelt's going to run pretty well. It should be fairly similar West Coast type scheme to what he saw with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. So he should be able to make that jump fairly easily. I am curious between him and Kendrick Bourne, they probably have a lot of overlap. And honestly, he and Douglas have some overlap too. So I feel like those three are kind of playing two receiver spots between the three of them. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But they still don't have an outside receiver to win versus press man, which scares me. But we'll see. But we do win the draft. Poor Patriots. Seeing no other questions, we'll hop in quick to buy, sell, hold, and then that should be about it. All right, so the first buy, sell, hold I want to bring up, we'll start on defense, is Jordan Brooks, Blake Cashman, Frankie Lulu. So Joe threw this together for me, so nice work, Joe. These are three linebackers in new places. For perspective, IDP Plus, our rankings have Frankie Luvu as linebacker 32, Blake Cashman as 37, Jordan Brooks as 14. And just based on those prices, it makes Brooks an easy sell from this group because I don't think his value will be significantly higher than the other two. I think I'm going to hold Luvu and buy Cashman. Cashman's dealt with some injuries, but overall, that Minnesota landing spot, taking over the primary linebacker role, most likely, there is by far the most interesting of the three. They blitz a lot under Brian Flores. Cashman was pretty good as a blitzer. He fits really well in coverage over the middle of the field. I'm really excited to see what he can do the next couple of years in Minnesota, which for those who don't know, it's also kind of a homecoming. I believe he grew up in Minnesota. I know he played for the Golden Gophers in college. So yeah, Cashman's my buy. Luvu's my hold. Brooks at linebacker 14 price, I'm selling. And speaking of, we'll hop over to the offensive side of the ball here quick. Joe gave me 3 running backs to hit on. We've got Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry. So on IDP Plus, our rankings have them at 33 for Jones, 28 for Mixon, and running back 13 for Henry in our dynasty ranks. 13 surprised me a little bit. Keep trade cut had Jones also at 33, had Mixon a little higher at 19, and Henry a little lower at 18. So if you're taking those prices into account, I'm probably going to buy Jones, sell Mixon, and hold Henry. Of the 3, Henry I prefer to the other 2, especially in like any kind of redraft or, obviously dynasty too. But his price, are you going to see significantly more return from Derrick Henry at running back? You'll see some, but how much more versus Aaron Jones? And tearing down from Henry to Jones, I think you would get a decent chunk for it. While also, Jones has been really efficient, and he's going to see a really good situation in Minnesota. Whoever their rookie quarterback is, a lot of reports are either May or McCarthy. Probably checking down quite a bit to Jones. Shouldn't face a ton of loaded boxes with Jefferson. I don't think Hawkinson starts the year healthy, unfortunately. But between Addison and Jefferson, they should be able to keep defenses from stacking a box against him. So I do believe he's going to wind up being a bit of a value of where he's at. Henry, I want him. I'm not selling him, because if you gave me the Mixon and Henry are close enough with how they're ranked that I'd much rather have Henry than I'd much more aligned with how our rankings are versus KTC's, where they're next to each other. Wouldn't shock me if the Texans draft a running back. It wouldn't shock me if the Ravens did either. But if both teams did, I would anticipate Henry having a much better role sharing with a rookie than Mixon. So I'll be honest, Mixon has not looked great the last couple of years, and he's been playing with a really good team around him. So, whereas Henry's had a terrible offensive line situation, it just got way better. And as someone, I'm even looking at buying with my contenders in Dynasty. So, that is really all I had. So, before we hop off, are there any more questions? Well, I wait and see if we get anything. As always, if you do have questions before the show, whatever, you can shoot them over to mailbag at idpguys.org. If you have any time sensitivities, just put it on there too. Like if you're looking at a trade that you don't want to wait until the next show for something's coming up or something, Joe and I check it fairly regularly, and we're happy to post it on X and get you an answer if we can. We can also get some of our other writers to chime in with their thoughts as well. Happy to tag some people, get your questions out there and get them answered. Yeah, I think that's about it. So appreciate all your time here, and see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.